Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned with an unexpected book haul. I acquired some books today very unexpectedly. There is a neighbor, a neighbor of the manor who lives close by, or lived close by. He actually passed away, I think a while ago. He passed away. And I had noticed that there were a couple of estate sales that happened at this house, and I guess these books were in that house but did not move during the estate sales, and so they were left behind. And Roger and we got our grubby paws on them because they were unwanted, Roger. They were unwanted, which shocks me because these are fantastic books. I mean, these aren't just good books; these are fantastic, and so it's shocking that they just were just left. So let's look at the books. So they are almost all of them from Heritage Press. I didn't take all the books, I left some books, but I took the good ones. And I have some Heritage Press books already. Heritage Press was a press that published illustrated classics, really nice illustrated classics. Usually they were reprinted from the limited editions club. And they were published in the 50s and 60s mostly, I think. Nowadays, you can get reprints of them from the Fancy Pants Easton Press, because the Easton Press's 100 Greatest Books series, those are all, I believe, reprints from the Heritage Press and Limited Edition Club books. So they're nice books. They're not particularly expensive usually. These are books that you will find very often at used bookstores. So they're not usually that expensive depending on the book. Some of them are pricey. But they're nice, and I've always really liked them. And this fella who passed away had really, really good taste in books. Nobody else in the neighborhood apparently had good taste in books because they were still there. But let's talk about them. First of all, he had this fella had a 2-volume edition of my favorite book in the world, which is Herodotus in the Histories. And this is the 2-volume edition of Herodotus from the Heritage Press. And it's lovely. Let me show you one of the volumes. This is Volume 1. Now, all the Heritage Press books came in these really nice, well, they weren't all that nice. They were pretty cheap, actually, but they came in slipcovers. Actually, some of these older Heritage Press books, usually the slipcovers are not in the best of shape, but this one is. I have a feeling that Herodotus, like a lot of these books, was just sitting on the shelf for a long, long time. So let me pull this out, and you can kind of see it because the edge is faded when you compare it to the book itself. But that's fine. I don't care about that. So Herodotus, this is Volume 1 from the Heritage Press. And the Heritage Press editions usually have this little newsletter, the Sandglass, which will tell you all about the book and the printing of the book and the illustrations and the illustrator of the book. It's all about the book. And so the Heritage Club Sandglass, it says, the classics which are our heritage from the past, in editions which will be the heritage of the future. And it's really nice. It's got one map that's really, really cool on the end papers. So it's got a map of the world of Herodotus. Of course, Herodotus was the first Western historian, Greek historian, and his histories are magnificent. It's just a wonderful book. It is my favorite book of all time. And I had, for a long time, I had my eye on this edition, but I never bought it. And now I'm kind of glad. So it's a beautiful book. The translator is Harry Carter, and I don't think I've ever heard of Harry Carter or read any of his translations. So I don't know when he translated, but it's full of little illustrations, and that is really cool. Who does the illustrations for this edition? Let me take a look. Illustrated and decorated by Edward Bodden. And it is illustrated and decorated nicely. All kinds of little illustrations in this edition of the histories. Each book is done up all fancy. So this is beautiful. So a 2-volume edition of Herodotus from the Heritage Press, which is, I mean, this is just, that's fantastic. This by itself would have been amazing. But no, there were a bunch of other books there from the Heritage Press. So let's look at those. Probably one of the most impressive things that was there was this. This is Plutarch's Lives. This is the North's Plutarch, the translation by Sir Thomas North of Plutarch's Lives. And it's a beautiful, beautiful Heritage Press edition. There's one little moisture mark there, but that's okay. It's still fantastic. Let's take a look at the first volume. So again, we have a 2-volume set, and it's just lovely. It's smaller, it's shorter than you usually get on these Heritage Press editions, but that's okay. It has its copy of the Sandglass inside. This one, because this is such a short book, it's folded, but it's there, so that's cool. And there's the title page there. That's pretty cool. I mean, look at that. Look at that. I mean, this is just beautiful. It's a beautiful book. It doesn't look like it's ever actually been read. There's the Life of Pericles there. So Plutarch, of course, ancient biographer, who wrote compared biographies. He would match a biography of a famous Greek like Alcibiades there with the life of a famous Roman, like Julius Caesar or Marcus Cato. And so this is, or Sulla. We've got Sulla here. So this is fantastic. To get the full Plutarch's Lives is fantastic. Usually you will get a selection. Like if you get the Penguin Classics of Plutarch, you're not going to get, you would have to buy several books for one thing to get all the lives. And they're not set up the way they should be in the Penguin edition. And yeah, it's a little tougher to get the whole of Plutarch's Lives. But that's what this is, and so that's pretty remarkable. So again, that by itself would be amazing. But there are some other books here that were just left behind. Ivanhoe, one of my very favorite books. We got a nice Heritage Press edition of Ivanhoe. And this one does not have its copy of the Sandglass, but that's all right. That's okay. This one was probably actually read. But again, a beautiful edition of Ivanhoe. And like I said, if you were to buy the fancy pants leather-bound edition of the Eastern Press 100 Greatest Books, it would be this edition of Ivanhoe that you would get. But it's a beautiful illustrated edition of Ivanhoe. Just fantastic. So yeah, oh, here's an illustration. There we go. It's lovely. I love this book, Ivanhoe. So there you go. You got Ivanhoe, so we have that. What else we got? Where am I gonna set these? I'll set this right here. Kidnapped. It's Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. So that's fantastic. Again, I think, yeah, this one didn't have its copy of the Sandglass either. But what it does have are these fantastic end papers, which is a map of Scotland, and it has the probable course of David Balfour's wanderings. And so you get to follow David on his trip across Scotland through this map, which is fabulous. That's fantastic. And it's a lovely edition, just like, I mean, these Heritage Press books, like I said, if you wanted to buy this copy of this edition of Kidnapped, it probably wouldn't be that expensive. And they're just lovely books. They're just lovely books to have in the library of these wonderful classics. So yeah, for classic illustrated books, the Heritage Press books are usually a less expensive option than some others. Now this is really cool. This is the lives of the 12 Caesars from Suetonius. I love Suetonius. And these are the lives of the Caesars. Again, the side is pretty faded. Or actually it looks a little darkened. So maybe this guy smoked or something. Who knows? But it's obviously was probably just on a shelf for years and years and years. And this one does have its copy of the Sandglass. So that's cool. And this one, who translated this? This is the translation by Philemon Holland, revised for the present edition with an introduction by Moses Haddus and illustrated with paintings by Salvatore Fiume. And so let me see if I could find some. They're basically illustrated with the little coins. So this is the history of Tiberius Nero Caesar. So you got the 12 Caesars here. Now this is an enormously entertaining book, by the way. And it's got some interesting illustrations in it. So this was pretty cool. Again, this by itself would have been a fantastic find. But wait, there's more. Now this one is really cool. This is H.G. Wells. And this has two novels in it. It has The War of the Worlds and The Time Machine. And this one's interesting because Heritage Press did come out with The Time Machine, which I have right there. But this must have been an earlier edition because this reprints that as well as The War of the Worlds in one book. So it's kind of like an ace double. You flip it over and get to the other book. It's interesting. So this is The Time Machine. And it is exactly the same edition of The Time Machine that I have up on the shelf there, with the really cool illustrations. And I think the same illustrator did War of the Worlds. Illustrated by Joe Mignani. I don't know. But he also does War of the Worlds, which I did not have. So that is really cool. Let's take a look at that. Yeah. A lot of these really cool illustrations. I think he's the illustrator for The Martian Chronicles as well, I think, which is also another Heritage Press book that I really love. So this is remarkable. Okay, here we have the dreadful Martian war machines there. So fantastic. That's really, really cool right there. Now, what else do we have? A couple more from the Heritage Press. Now, this is cool because this is 20 years after, which is a book I recently talked about in one of Roger's random book shows. But this edition is the companion edition to, where is my, oh, I have it right here, The Three Musketeers. I have the Easton Press reprint of the Heritage Press edition of The Three Musketeers. This is the sequel to The Three Musketeers, the first sequel, 20 years after. And the format is exactly like The Three Musketeers. It has the same cool illustrations, or illustrator, I should say. It's double columned, just like The Three Musketeers is. But it's fantastic. It's just a beautiful, beautiful book. And I can't remember the name of the illustrator. Eddie Legrand. And I think this edition, much like Heritage Press's Three Musketeers, the translator is unknown. They don't mention the translator. But it is a very, very beautiful book. So it was an old-timey translation, I'm sure. So that was cool. But of the Heritage Press editions, I saved the best for last. So this is the book that as soon as my 500 book challenge is over, the challenge where I can't actually buy any books, but I can acquire them in other ways, Roger. But as soon as that challenge is over, this is the book that I had planned on reading, but I did not have this edition. And now I do. And this is, I can lift all of these up, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Gibbon. And this, you will see this edition in bookstores once in a while. And I never thought I would get my hands on one, but now I do. Now I have it. Now this is a very, very long book, as you could tell. This edition is in 3 volumes from the Heritage Press, but they're beautiful. Every single one has an illustration like that. This is the cover of volume 1, and it's just gorgeous. And this has it has its sand glass, has that. But it also has this other thing there for the set. So that's really cool. That's still in there. We have a map. And yeah, Edward Gibbon, Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Volume 1. And it's fantastic. Does this have illustrations in it as well? I'm not sure, but it does have a ton of notes, which is nice. That will prove helpful. This is just an enormous book. And so, of course, I've been wanting to read this book for years. And I have another edition, but it's not nearly as nice as this one. And it's so long that, I'm not going to read it while the whole 500 book challenge thing is going on. Oh, here we go. Look at that. Yeah. But as soon as the challenge is over, I'm reading this book. Once it doesn't matter how long the books I read are, or how long it takes me to get through a book. Yeah. I'm getting right to it. So those are all the Heritage Press editions, but there were a couple other books that I grabbed because, they're fabulous. This is Archer in Hollywood by Ross MacDonald. This is an omnibus edition of 3 of Ross MacDonald's detective novels starring Lou Archer. And so this has the first novel in the series, The Moving Target. It also has The Way Some People Die and The Barbarous Coast. So an omnibus edition of the Lou Archer novels. I have all of them. The only one I think I didn't have in a physical copy is the first one, The Moving Target. So that's kind of cool to have. These are really good books, really good detective novels, the Lou Archer series by Ross MacDonald. I highly recommend them. And so this was really cool. That's a really cool thing to find. And this one is also really cool. This is from Raymond Chandler, who I love. And yes, of course, I have all of these books in another edition, but, I saw this and grabbed it. Because why wouldn't I? It's the Raymond Chandler Omnibus. Now look at this thing. This is awesome. And so this has 4 famous classics, and they are classics. This has The Big Sleep, Farewell, My Lovely, The High Window, and The Lady in the Lake. So this, I think, is the reprint of this book from the 70s, I'm guessing. But let me see. This was reprinted a few times, this particular book. Yeah, this one's the 3rd printing from 1975, when I was 4. But, again, this looks to be a book that's just been sitting on the shelf, untouched and unread, because aside from dust, it does have a lot of dust on the top of it. It's in perfect shape. It's just fabulous. So yeah, the Raymond Chandler Omnibus. And this will give me an excuse to revisit Raymond Chandler, just to read this book. These 4 novels are great. Big Sleep, Farewell, My Lovely, The High Window is good. The Lady in the Lake is really good. So, 4 of his best books right there. The Raymond Chandler Omnibus. And that is everything. But this was completely unexpected. I stumbled across these while I was walking my dogs. And I just went right back. So there you go. Sometimes, you know, crazy good things happen. And finding, I mean, not the guy passing away, that was sad, but just, you know, getting my hands on these books, that is good. It does make me think about, you know, one of these days, I'm going to pass away, Roger, unless you can get the whole immortality thing going for me too. And I really think you ought to. Unless I can get him to use the Necronomicon once again unwisely to make me immortal, I probably will pass away eventually. And all of my books, what will happen to them? Will they just be passed up as these were? You know? Maybe? Will they end up on the street in a box? That's a dreadful thought, Roger, but you never know. You never know. Okay, guys, I'll shut up now. I will catch you next time.